reviews Shelley Long. Siskel and Ebert reviews Shelley Long as the ultra-chic leader of Troop Beverly Hills. Aidan Quinn is a slave trader shipwrecked on a tropical island in Caruso. And Michael Keaton heads a group of mental patients on the loose in New York in the comedy, The Dream Team. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert.
Another step until somebody gets me my dinner.
Dinner? I've got to get this report to Dr. Newell right away. Which way is Fenton?
Straight ahead. 71 miles. If you don't stop for the litter, you can be back by Christmas.
A band of 4 mental patients are on the loose in Manhattan, and they make a lot more sense than some of the so-called normal people. That's in The Dream Team, one of 5 new movies we're going to be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Our first film is called The Dream Team. It's an all-too-familiar would-be comedy about 4 mental patients out on their own in the big city. Michael Keaton plays one of the patients taken to New York City for a baseball game, but while the group is taking a break at a gas station, the therapist in charge is beaten up by some homicidal cops, and one of the other patients, a baseball-obsessed introvert played by Stephen Furst, he witnesses the doctor's assault and his disappearance.
Wait a minute. This has something to do with Weitzman.
Did they take him away in an ambulance? Is that it, Albert?
It's like a scene out of a Lassie movie. Did Timmy fall in the well, Lassie? Did he, girl? Look, Albert. Did they take Weitzman away in an ambulance?
Big inning.
That's a definite yes.
All he said was big inning.
Yeah, but he nodded when he said a watch.
Big inning.
See? All you have to do is learn how to speak Albert.
Michael Keaton is not believable as a wild man. We think of Jack Nicholson, of course, in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and Keaton comes off badly by comparison.
Who the hell do you think you are?
I'm an escaped mental patient with a history of violence. Check, please. Now pay the lady. Okay.
That's Lorraine Bracco as Keaton's girlfriend. Peter Boyle plays a patient who thinks he's the son of God.
We're looking for something casual for the son of God.
Well, how much does the Supreme Being want to spend?
How about a nice Harris tweed with a blue Oxford button down and maybe a nice Countess Maritai, hey, sport?
The Dream Team tries to be both a comedy and a little thriller. I certainly didn't laugh, and I certainly wasn't caught up in any of the drama about whether the killers would be captured. The whole film suffers by comparison, of course, with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and I didn't find anything funny or insightful about its array of would-be mental patients. This is TV sitcom material, bad TV sitcom material.
There were moments that I liked, but generally speaking, I agree with you. They didn't crank this up to the level of craziness, if you will, that the material really needs.
Yeah.
It's, to a peculiar degree, it's kind of lax. It doesn't really seem to have the energy level that it needs. It sort of moves along in a kind of a logical way. In fact, it ought to reach some kind of a peak of insanity.
It's neither about the people, really. It doesn't really deal with the people, and it doesn't really deal with the story that they're caught up in, which is trivial stuff. I mean, you know, whether the cops, or how they're going to catch the cops. I don't know what this movie is about.
Well, let me ask you this. We get the 4 characters at the beginning.
Yes.
Each one has his trait, each one has his problem. What kind of a movie would have been like if they had been let loose in the real city of Manhattan in order to deal with it as they are, instead of being plugged into, you're quite right, another sitcom comedy about how the bad guys are trying to break in the hospital and murder this person, and they're trying to save him, and it just all becomes formula.
They haven't even written 4 interesting characters. No. Michael Keaton is a good actor. We saw him play a drug addict in Clean and Sober. He's not playing a crazy person. That is not a crazy person or a mentally ill person there. It's just Michael Keaton doing things that are somewhat supposed to be funny. Like Bill Murray is playing...
What discourages me is when they basically plug it into a formula instead of saying, okay, if these are the characters, what would happen to them?
Yeah, no, the film doesn't have that kind of guts.
Okay, next movie. And the title of our next film is Sing. And that is also the title of the annual talent show that has been held every year at a historic Brooklyn high school that is now threatened with being closed. And so now that I provided you with those rudimentary pieces of information, can you possibly guess the plot? What do you think the odds are? What do you think what do you want to bet that the school board is going to try to cancel Sing, and that there's a meanie who wants to close down the school and put everybody out on the streets, but that at the last minute those students get together and the show goes on? Well, of course, you would be right. This is predictable. But on this movie, I'm inclined to give it a pass on its predictability because it gets a lot of mileage out of a dependable old formula. And one of its angles is casting rock star Patti LaBelle as one of the teachers.
I've got my eye on you. I send my thoughts straight in your direction. But am I getting through? Day and night, I'm trying to make a connection. I studied every book. I rented videos, hoping for assistance. I watch your every look, but it's so hard to love you from a distance. Help me out.
This high school has great teachers. Here's another one, a newcomer to the faculty, played by Lorraine Bracco. Here she confronts the talented school troublemaker.
I was very surprised, Mr. Zametti, to dig out your school files and discover that you've got a record of drug possession, petty larceny.
That's Peter Dobson, who is not only a dancer, but a junior thief. And this is Jessica Steen as the good girl he falls in love with. He likes her so much, he tries to make up for robbing her mother's diner.
Look here, that's my Rolex. It's worth a lot of money. I don't know how much, but I know it's worth a lot. And I got some cash here. It's almost like 200 bucks. It's all I got.
Well, what's this for, Dominic? I thought you were clean.
Look, Hannah, just because I want to help out doesn't mean that I did nothing.
A lot of the movie consists of high-spirited dance numbers like this one. Now, I was just attacking the Dream Team for having a predictable plot, and I know that the plot of Sing is an old story, right down to the good girl who redeems the bad kid. But I liked the movie anyway because of the energy that went into it and because of the hard-boiled edge to some of the performances. And Lorraine Bracco was especially good as the new teacher in the school. Now, this is a new actress who we both thought was the best thing in Someone to Watch Over Me, that movie last year where she played the cop's wife back in Queens. Now she's in the Dream Team, where she played Michael Keaton's girlfriend, and she's also in Sing. And because the story was really predictable, I was all the more grateful for the way that she made the scenes fresh. You may have known where the story was going, but you never knew what she was going to do, and I thought she was the best thing in the movie. Also, the dancing was good. The music was okay. What are you laughing at?
I didn't, the movie, in your review, I didn't like the picture at all. I think that her accent gets a little tiresome. I mean, that heavy Brooklyn accent just seems a little too theatrical for me, and that's just the start of the problems. The songs, as soon as I sing the first song, the school pledge, I know what's going to happen the whole way through. I know you know what's going to happen the whole way through, and I just saw the formula cranked out, and I compare it again with Fame, which is sort of the standard of this kind of picture, and Fame comes off just so much better than this.
Well, I mean, you could also compare it with some of the movies we've seen in the last couple of weeks, like Rooftops, you know, and other movies that are supposed to take place in tough neighborhoods where kids redeem themselves. Or Lean on Me, the Joe Clark movie.
Yeah.
What's happening in this movie is, I think it's frankly a fantasy. It's frankly this kind of film.
Oh,
it's like a musical. There are certain conventions that you have to accept.
Yes, but they can do it either. They can either do it well or they don't do it well. I don't think they do it particularly well.
Let's get back to Lorraine Bracco. When you heard that accent last year, you were saying, "Gee, I wish the whole movie had been about her."
Yes, in that I would have to listen to.
It may be, Gene, that this is the way she speaks. We haven't met her. We don't know.
I have no idea. I'm just telling you, this time it stuck out for me.
Well, this time it didn't for me because I thought, here at least I'm hearing a distinctive human voice.
Oh, wait, but Roger, but if you're just going to pin this on her, you're liking the movie on her, that doesn't reflect the whole movie. The whole movie is about a lot of other characters. Coming up next, Shelley Long stars as a wealthy, superficial den mother to rich, spoiled Girl Scouts in Troop Beverly Hills.
Who are you? Phyllis Neffler, Troop Beverly Hills.
Our next film is called Troop Beverly Hills, a blatant and wildly inferior ripoff of Private Benjamin. Shelley Long takes the Goldie Hawn role, playing a pampered poodle who is forced to rough it as a Girl Scout leader in swanky Beverly Hills.
Having fun?
Mrs. Neffler, we're above the fire line, and you shouldn't be smoking. It's bad for you. And it disguises nervous conditions, which you should deal with in other ways.
Smokey the Bear says only you can prevent forest fires.
Smokey the Bear isn't going through a terribly messy divorce.
Shelley Long quickly calls off the campout and takes the girls to a bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel. A couple of fuddy-duddy scoutmasters are appalled at what she's done.
What the hell is happening here? This is supposed to be a camp out, not a pajama party. Is this what you call roughing it?
One bathroom for 9 people? Yes.
And just like in Private Benjamin, there is a film-ending competition between the incompetent rich girls and a pack of Cracker Jack scouts.
Oh, good spirit, Tiffany. Good spirit, girls. A few positive words from me, and they get their second wind.
See, she's from Beverly Hills, so she doesn't catch on right away that that's a skunk. That's the low level of humor in this piece. Shelley Long has absolutely nothing funny to do here that she didn't do better in Irreconcilable Differences, also playing a Beverly Hills lady. The scouts are restricted to cameos. The film looks ugly. There's absolutely nothing to like about Troop Beverly Hills except the end credits, which tell us our misery is over.
The problem with this movie is they missed the point from the starting gate. This movie does not think there is anything in the way of a satirical target about Beverly Hills. It doesn't see the joke. It is not a satire on rich people and on their lifestyles and on Beverly Hills. It's a little morality play in which Shelley Long plays the woman who at first has no purpose in life, and then she becomes noble because she finds a purpose by becoming a good scout leader. This movie doesn't have a shred of irony. If it had been directed by somebody like Paul Mazursky or Robert Altman, who can do a satire, then it would have perhaps been funny.
Well,
but it's a little sweet play, a goody-goody.
I think that the filmmakers simply think by showing, and we see it right at the top of the film, showing them a montage of Beverly Hills signs, that in itself is funny, or showing the kids being rich and driving up in a long limousine, that is perforce funny. And it isn't funny.
You have to say something about it. You have to make a comic point about it, and this movie doesn't do that because it doesn't want to satirize Beverly Hills. The people who made this movie probably like Beverly Hills.
Or live there.
Yes.
Why not have the kids have some time alone to discuss things? Why wouldn't they care to write any dialogue for the kids to interact among themselves? I have no idea.
Because
I mean, it's a lazy piece of writing.
It's a star vehicle. When we come back, Crusoe, the story of a man shipwrecked on an island, and his first name, by the way, is not Robinson. Curious thing about this film is that it is not quite a version of Robinson Crusoe, and yet it almost could be. It involves some of the same sorts of situations, but it has an original theme. It's about how a slave trader from the American South learns to accept Africans as fellow human beings after being marooned on an island with some of them. After his ship is wrecked in a great storm at sea, he washes ashore and discovers that he's on an island somewhere off the African coast.
No!
That's Aidan Quinn as Crusoe, his only companion, a dog who also survived the wreck.
Go out there. Go see what it is. I said, go see what it is. Go on.
Then Crusoe discovers the island has human inhabitants when one of them captures him.
Let me down.
They eventually arrive at a truce, and then the question becomes which one of them is going to teach the other one his language.
Meat. Sand. Meat. Meat. Jala. Meat, 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 meat. Malashoye. Jala. Jala. Ah. Meat. Meat.
The best way to describe Crusoe might be to start with the director, whose name is Caleb Deschanel. He's one of the best cinematographers in America right now. And one of the films he photographed a few years ago was a masterpiece called The Black Stallion. Like that film, this one is about a shipwreck, an island, and a story that is very strong and essentially very simple. There's not much dialogue in this movie. There's not a lot of action. Instead, the situation develops in a natural and logical way as these two men, a slave trader and a potential slave, come to know each other as human beings. This movie is based on character and intelligence rather than on formulas, and one thing that I was very grateful for was that the ending was not a bloodbath, which seemed to be the direction it was moving in, but a reasonable and dramatic resolution to the story.
I enjoyed it a lot, and I am relieved to finally give a positive review. Last week I didn't like any of the 5 pictures. The first 3 here I haven't liked. This is something that's quite special. You're talking about Caleb Deschanel's cinematography. It's beautiful, just as it was in The Black Stallion. I also want to focus on the sound. This is a picture that will teach younger people to listen and look. Some of the natural sounds, they mic this film very well, just as they did in Black Stallion. And so you hear natural sounds, and your ears are opened. And literally, I mean, we have so much crashing noise coming at us in most movies with soundtracks that are totally unnecessary and musical cues. This is natural, quiet sound.
I agree with you. The atmosphere of the island, the way the island is photographed, the way Aidan Quinn acts in a role that has very little dialogue, all of it adds up to a story. A story where something develops, where a man has an adventure, rather than most of the movies that are being made these days in which essentially people are just thrown into a maelstrom of activity in which everybody gets shot, everybody gets blown up, everybody races around in cars, and nothing really happens. How much more of a sense of wonder this movie has?
Well, the reason I think it has a sense of wonder is because it gives you a true sense of place. In other words, I thought I was there. I was taken out of my theater seat. When I see something like Troop Beverly Hills, I know that they're shooting Beverly Hills locations, but that doesn't look like Beverly Hills.
They're shooting in Beverly Hills, but they have not thought about Beverly Hills, and so they are not shooting Beverly Hills because they can't see it, even though it's right under their noses.
This film loves its place. Crusoe is a terrific picture.
Absolutely right. Coming up next, Pow Wow Highway, a drama of contemporary American Indians trying to regain the power of their heritage.
If you want to be a warrior, you got to dress right. That's an essential part of the ritual.
This film is called Pow Wow Highway, an uneven but quite emotional story of a couple of contemporary American Indians who travel by car through a series of Indian reservations dealing with poverty, loss of tradition, and a white man's culture that doesn't respect them. One of the Indians is a beefy, simple guy who is determined to visit a holy Indian shrine in South Dakota, where he climbs one of the famous Black Hills. That's Gary Farmer as the Indian. The strength of the film can be found in its visuals of the Indian landscape, which is now quite barren. The story part of the picture involves the two friends trying to spring a relative out of jail. The subject matter of Indians getting a raw deal, of course, couldn't be more familiar. But Pow Wow Highway succeeds because of its simple, handmade quality. The drama doesn't always work. Some of it is kind of sloppy. But what has been done to the land, which this film shows in a number of cross-country shots and helicopter shots, what has been done to the land can never be forgotten.
I think also you could say something more about the performances. Gary Farmer and also an actor named A. Martinez, who has the lead.
They're very good.
They are very good. I've never seen them before. They're very natural in front of the camera. They're very convincing, and we get a sense of these people and their lives. You don't get a feeling of the story imposing all of their actions on them. We feel that maybe we're kind of looking at them from outside. Also, it's not just a drama, Gene. It's a comedy, too. There are a lot of very funny things that happen.
Well, I tell you, I like what you said about it not being so much about its story. They're caught up in this plot, if you will, of trying to get one of the guy's sisters out of jail, who he hasn't seen in 10 years. That was almost incidental to what the movie is about.
On their way to go do that, they stop off in North Dakota. That's how much they care about it.
Yeah, I like that. I like that sort of random quality to the film. It wasn't predictable where they were going to go, and that mirrors real life with a couple of guys on the run. They're obviously oppressed by their cultural environment, and so they just run across the country and we follow them. I'm a sucker for road pictures, and I think that this is a very good one.
Another nice thing about it is that it doesn't take just the party line on the American Indian movement, even though the guy who is the lead in the movie is a member of AIM. At one point, he has a very cynical line where he says, look at these people, they think some beads and feathers are going to make a culture. And then later on, it turns out that there is an Indian culture, but it goes much more deeply than having a powwow in a high school auditorium somewhere. So the movie has
a little hard edge,
a deeper level that really works.
I think it's very fine. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed this week. 2 thumbs down for The Dream Team, a silly would-be comedy about mental patients. Michael Keaton isn't very good in his role. A split vote on Sing, a corny high school musical that Roger thought was redeemed by its performances. I thought the story could have been written by a computer. 2 very negative votes for the joyless Troop Beverly Hills, with Shelley Long as an inept Girl Scout leader. No laughs here. 2 thumbs up, however, for Crusoe, the enchanting story of a shipwrecked man and the natives he meets. And 2 more thumbs up for the contemporary American Indian drama Powwow Highway, a fresh road picture about Indian life today. So Crusoe and Powwow Highway, 2 films about the land, if you will, about different locations.
And I'm telling you, as we look back on this show, one of the discoveries we will have made is Lorraine Bracco. No matter what you thought about those 2 movies, I think she's a very, very fresh face, and I
think she's a fresh face. It's just the accent I'm getting tired of.
Not fair. That's it for this week. Next time, we'll review more new movies, including Major League, a baseball comedy starring Tom Berenger and Charlie Sheen, and also Sam Neill stars in Dead Calm, a thriller about a man and his wife who go on a cruise, and she's kidnapped. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Nestle Crunch. It's creamy milk chocolate and crispy crunchies. Chocolate is scrunchious when it crunches. That's why you'll love Nestle Crunch. Pledge. With Pledge, dusting can be beautiful. Now available in spring fresh scent. After work or after workout, Daisy Turbo Spa combines a powerful water massage and tingling aeration to turn your tub into a personal whirlpool. Tap-in SureCook Space Saver Microwave is perfect for kitchens where space is at a premium. Tap-in Touch solid state controls, automatic temperature probe, and wood grain decor, furnished by Tap-in.
Of C-section.